next to go. Individual
for New Zealand now, Jonathan Paget.
And he rides France's stead, Clifton Promise.
Jonathan, who rides Clifton Promise for France's stead. He divides his time between Muriwai in New Zealand and Surrey in England. He's another one, rising 27, born in November 1983. Jonathan Paget, or Jock as he's known, has enjoyed success in Australia and New Zealand before setting up his pre-WEG campaign by coming to the Rolex Kentucky 3-day event. Competed also at the Aachen Chio.
For New Zealand, Jonathan Paget with Clifton Promise.
He's the principal rider for Clifton Eventers. Clifton Promise. 12-year-old New Zealand thoroughbred by Engagement. Jock, who was second with Clifton Pinot at the 2-star at Taupo in New Zealand in May of this year. Clifton Promise, a winner at the Hastings 3-star in March. So he was 27th here in the Rolex Kentucky 3-day event this spring as part of his preparation for this World Games. 4th in the World Cup qualifier at Kahiki. Just looked at the screen with him on very nearly 67% for this half pirouette left. Disappointing there. He got a 6.77 for his first movement. Shoulder in down the centre line. 6.77 to the collected walk into the half pirouette. 7.78 collected trot. Coming up, shoulder in on the centre line again. 7.77 for his transitions into and out of extended trot for that change of rein. It's on 68 or so % now. 7.87 for the shoulder in. He's just completed his half pass and about to transition down to walk again. 7.87 for the half pass. Very nearly at 70% now. 70% could be good enough for 4th, maybe even 3rd. Very nice halt, just asking for the rein back. Very bold and confident steps, should be well rewarded by the judges. As Jonathan heads off at walk, turning across the short diagonal, he'll extend the walk, allowing the horse to stretch out and down whilst maintaining the pace and rhythm and activity of the walk. Gather the horse back up into medium walk now at B. Ready for the upward transition to canter. Just missed the rein back score. The extended walk getting 3.7s. That's Jonathan. Canters his half circle, ready to start his half pass. The medium walk getting 3.7s. Ready for the upward transition. He's on 68.5% now overall at this point. Simone was on 74%. Into the Serpentines, just starting the counter-canter loop. 7.76 for the half pass. He's just completed his flying change. Counter-canter getting 3.7s there. We'll get the flying change score in just a moment. 3.8s. Back up to 69.25%. Into the canter half pass. To the centre line. And into extended canter now, up alongside. The half pass getting 2.7s and a 6. Really could just do with picking up 1 or 2 more 8s to get him above that 70%. Into the Serpentines. 8.87, 69.5% for the extended canter. Into the second flying change. Off the counter-canter. 7.87 for the true canter Serpentine. Jonathan. Jock Paget sets up for these flying changes out of collected canter. Flying change, second one being given 3/7. Don't think he's going to get above 69.5. 887 for the collected canter with change. Could be wrong, he might just squeak above the 70 mark. 3/8 for the second one, he does. 70.25% as he goes into his final movement. A halt and salute.
Jonathan Paget and Clifton Promise.
70.2, not going to be good enough to go ahead of Paul Tapner. Down to the collectives, he's at 70.3, having picked up a 7, 7 and 8 for his final movement. Jock Paget, Clifton Promise, individual rider for New Zealand, just completing their test.
Back in the spring, won the CIC 3-star in Hastings, New Zealand, in March this year as well.
So, Jock with the horse he won the Hastings 3-star in New Zealand in March of this year. Clifton Promise. Some of the highlights of his test, which should be going into 3rd or 4th spot when we get the scores confirmed. So the canter work there, 44.2 into 4th, 70.56 is the percentage total, 70, 72 and 69.67. Marilyn Payne at C, the president of the ground jury, not just liking him as much as the other two judges, David Lee for Ireland and Anna Mette Binder for Denmark, but those percentages so close when you imagine that in this test there are 26 movements, 4 collective marks, it's marked out of 300. You imagine that if you were 1 or 2 marks at variance with your other two judges, you could end up being quite far apart on the percentages, and actually our judges have been remarkably close. Simone Dieterman, Dirk Schroud, Paul Tapner, Jonathan Paget now, the batting order at the top of the table.
All the first members of teams, and the wonderful course designed by Mike Edrington Smith, built by Mick Costello and his team.
Second, first rider to go for Great Nicholas Wilson aboard Opposition Buzz. Opposition Buzz owned by Rosemary Search. He's a 13-year-old jockey for gelding.
Earlier this year in March. They also completed the restart in July, as well as completing here at Lexington, Kentucky, Star in May. Riding as individual bred gelding, Clifton Promise.
First place. Germany still got a hand score against free and easy. Coming to 21 with the second lane, second mile. Geronimo over the Dulcimer.
No problem.
Up next, Marco competing as an individual here. He had 58.5 penalties after the dressage. Durango, an 11-year-old French-bred Anglo-Arab gelding owned by Team Tiavaron. This pair of Durango finishes in three stars earlier this year. They were 29th at Aachen. A good finish as well at Saumur in France, and finished 16th in the three-star at Bairano Minigolfo. Individual runner Marco Capine for Italy and Durango.
Jonathan Paget, very nice there. The
National Forest Race 11 and 12, Victoria Carbeck and Ballich Geronimo. They've jumped the Abraham Lincoln birthplace, jumped the corner on the right-hand side, and that's where everybody's gone so far. Now on the long gallop in the infield down to the Scarling Sycamore at 21. Marco Capo and Durango. They're over the first two at the moment. Ballich Geronimo, Victoria Carbeck, the individuals from Sweden. Just lining up the McConnell Springs, back inside of Lexington. Jonathan Paget, Clifton Promise very well through the Fort Boonsborough benches. Marco Capai and Durango at the Solano Wildlife Centre, the first water fence on this course. Victoria Carbeck, Ballich Geronimo, and the horsepower shot is at 23 and 4 on the red route. Clifton Promise jumping beautifully for the Dulcimer.
So over the mounted Dulcimer at 14, Clifton Promise and Jock Paget, number 19, lying well up in this class as an individual for New Zealand. There's the Clifton Promise and 15 A, B, C and D continues on a long left-handed loop to the Shaker Simplicity at 16, clears that, jumping in the all-black colours.
One big question at the end, the Scott brushes. Do you chance the quicker, narrow route, or go for the safer, longer? Victoria Carbeck goes the long way through the scallop brushes with Ballich Geronimo. Jumps the first one and the second. 2 to go for her as Jonathan Paget and Clifton Promise. They will be at the land between the lakes in a moment. Marco Capa and Durango clear through the Walnut Hall corners at 7.
And we are set to go now with our second riders from the team rotation. First to go for Great Britain. Now Great Britain after the dressage was in second. The second rider from Great Britain with just 42 penalties after the dressage, William Fox Pitt, and the Honorable Mrs. Teresa Stopford, Sandville's Pool Mountain. This pair, of course, winners of the
Lexington, Kentucky 4-star earlier in May. William is the only rider to have won 4 different 4-star events. He's won 6 European team golds plus 2 individual silvers. Second rider for Great Britain.
Very well. They've jumped the Master Hayfeeders at 9. Score for Victoria Carnabec and Balance Geronimo. 20 jumping penalties at 4.85.
Is now in the last quarter of the cross-country course. Also over the Abraham Lincoln birthplace at 20. Marcus Capai, Durango, the individual for Italy. National Forest. And then clears the corner, slightly better than the William Foxpin has jumped the second with Pool Mountain, of course, the winner here at the Rolex Kentucky in the spring. Now jumped the Kentucky Quilt Patents at 3 and 4. Jonathan Paget flies the Cigar Lane Sycamore before the water. Very quickly down into the water. Marcus Capai and Durango. They're at the Fort Boots for now. And everyone has ensured the direct route into there. And it's been quite heavy weather on the fence on the way out again. Jonathan Paget at 23 and 4, the horsepower shelter. William Foxpin in the infield over the road full Carolyn Harris 6-6. Marco Cabai and Durango.
We're all set now.
Coming back down the hill. Pool Mountain. Very neatly through the Walnut Hall corner. Foxpin, who always sits very quietly on Pool Mountain, and he lives up to his name, Pool Mountain. Jonathan Paget and Clifton Promise at the third last of the Scotland brushes. He goes the long way down. Round the back of the Land Rover, and here's the second element. So he's got 2 to go. Marco Capai and Durango. They jumped down. And the chase is 16. William Foxpin going the rapid route back the
Jock Paget with Clifton Promise.
Yeah, he sort of stole under the radar a bit yesterday. We didn't see much of him on the
Clifton
closed
Promise
circuit.
and Jonathan Paget.
No, at the point he was on the course, he was 19th out on the day. He went into the lead, which he held for a wee while. His individual rider for New Zealand. His 46.4 penalties has him currently in 10th place in his first World Championships.
Yeah, and if he'd have been in the team, they'd have been in the lead. Johnny Nearly.
Yeah, just 0.6 of a penalty behind Great Britain at this point of the competition if he'd been on the team for New Zealand. You'd often say you can't hear a pin drop in the stands, but you can hear everything drop in these stands.
Yes, our fellow commentators having a bit of a problem there.
Jock's doing a real good job here with this New Zealand thoroughbred. By engagement, owned by Francis Stead, 12 years old. This would be one of the stories of the games, though. This man for New Zealand.
Never looked like knocking one down.
He'll have booked himself a ticket onto their team in the future with that. Jonathan Paget is going to finish in the top 10 at this World Equestrian Games with Clifton Promise on his score of 46.4 penalties.
And Clifton Promise.
Lovely round. Absolutely copybook.
Jock, who's crossed the Tasman Strait in his time. He moved to Sydney in 1986, but moved back to New Zealand in 2007, becoming the principal rider for Clifton Aventus.
And thoroughbreds doing very well at these games. The Canadian thoroughbreds, these thoroughbreds, New Zealand thoroughbred, all jumping really well.
And it was definitely a course built to their particular strengths yesterday.